Epiphany Farrell, who's down in southern Illinois, so all around the world. So what we're going to do is have readers come on one at a time. They're going to read to you. If you have questions, please post them in the YouTube chat. And we've got Mel backstage. She's going to pass those questions on to us, and I will ask them of the authors. So ask them those difficult questions and see what we can get out of them. All right. So first up, we've got Reece Abbott. And she's been in 2 of our issues. She was in issue 19 and issue 20. Oops, and I'm just going to bring both of those issues on the screen there. There we go. She's an emerging New Zealand Irish writer who has lived in both hemispheres and worked around the world. She was a finalist for the Tilly Olsen Prize, the Maria Edgeworth Short Fiction Prize, the Sunday Business Post Penguin Ireland Short Story Prize, the Bath Novella in Flash Prize. Her stories have won the H.G. Wells Grand Prize, the Northern Crime Prize, and Crediton Short Story Prize. Her novel, The Helpmeet, is a Green Bean Irish Novel Fair winner. And I'll put links to that up in the chat underneath the video as well. And I should say that her fiction has been shortlisted for the Bumblebee and I believe the Hummingbird Prize, and that's how we came across her and ended up publishing her. So welcome, Alex.
Thank you, and welcome everyone, and thank you for coming, especially Wordfishers. And a big thanks to Jen and the Pulp Lit team for publishing my work and for hosting this live reading and for being so great to work with. I've chosen 3 flash fictions to read today, 2 published and a sneak preview. I wrote my first flash as a bet when I was struggling to edit my own work, and that won the Avon Prize, so I kept going, although I do still write in other forms. Preparing for today made me look at my work a little bit differently. I had quite a few where did that come from moments, and the answer was a wide range of sources. A photo, like My Brother Paulie, that's in this lovely book here. I love this cover. Thank you, Pop Lit. And sometimes it's a theme that's provided. There was a bat walk I went on. That was another trigger for me. Or as in the flash from this one, you can see it on the screen here. It came out of a conversation with a very dear friend, and I'd like to dedicate this to her and her wonderful, talented kid whose identity is emerging. And it's called Alphabet Soup. She's making changes, taking a new direction. You want to be supportive, want to be cool, want to mask the surprise, want to hide your tailspin. No one has all the answers. You coddle her, a passenger on the mood roller coaster, her constant companion through the long nights of tears and shoulda-bees. She grumbles you are smothering, says her confusion and self-doubt have been going on for years. You rack your memory, scanning her childhood for warnings and nascent realizations, stumble over all the signals you think you'd missed. You didn't see this coming. Now you curse those who told you it was just a phase. You investigate health insurance. As you get your head around what she's going through, the lack of local professional support eats at you. You worry at the pronouns, kicking yourself for fumbling. When you're alone, you practice rewiring your brain. You watch her seeking, looking at old photographs, memory and sentiment crest. She didn't grow out of it. Turns out genes are complicated. In this new era, it's easy to understand that they are more subtle than we knew, follow no simple linear pattern. The ache of deprivation and absence jostle with who you will gain from this chromosomal mix-up. You try to work out how much of a life you can have now with all the years of consultations, analysis, treatments and surgeries and stigma. You know there's no right way. Still, you search for magic wands, wanting to make things easier as she reaches her essence, claims her place. Not prepared to lose her, You are determined to show her love. Constant, simple, beyond any alphabet soup. You help her find the right bra, get her makeup right, offer her a uterus. You are making changes, taking a new direction. It's your transition too. Thank you. So the next piece, oh, sorry, go on.
That is a wonderful story, and we are so glad to have published it. So do continue.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's a privilege to be able to read it, especially since I know the person I wrote it for is listening in. The next piece I wrote I want to read was published in Bonsai, which is the first, I'm not sure how much of this you can see, over here. Anyway, the first anthology of New Zealand flash fiction. And that came from a motel theme that was in New Zealand's Flash Frontier, which was founded by the fabulous Michelle Alvey. Now, immediately it got me thinking about all the women I met around the world over the years who were working in motels and hotels and on zero contracts and low pay, often Indigenous women and women of colour. And I called it Rules. Here we go. Beneath the spy holes, laminated rules are pinned on every door. Before leaving, Mary flicks them with her fake feather duster. No jobs when she left school. This gig came through Karina, her tranny cuz, who knew the owner. They shot through to Sydney, left Justin in charge. Thinks he's running the bloody Sheraton. Perks, like guests, are down. That bypass kicked the town into the long grass. Magpie Mary sifts, flotsam and jetsam. Keep, chuck, keep. Most days there's still loose change. Her tips. Clothing sometimes, even underwear, gross. Hoodies, t-shirts, okay with a hot wash, no one's going to miss those. Scored a diesel denim jacket once, huge, so Auntie Big Becca snaffled that. Toys, she keeps back, in case someone claims them. Then after a good clean, her rangy scores the pick. Kids seem to get the rest. Soft toys are saddest. But Justin won't chase the guests down once they've checked out. Reckons you never know their circumstances, like the motel's a scene of some big mystery. Nowadays, guests keep their eye everything's close as their drugs. No chance. Sometimes there's a necklace caught in the sheets. Cufflinks lurking beneath the bed. Haste makes waste. Fair game. Her mother's wrapped with those pearl studs. Mary held on to them for a month, just in case. The chunky Rolex from the bedside table glints on her skinny brown wrist. Car boot? Nah, too obvious. Guests think cleaners nick anything unless it's nailed down. Could be a trap. Anyway, the golden manacle clashes with her primrose rubber gloves. She'll tell Justin. Sometimes guests offer rewards. Beats a poke in the eye with a blunt stick. There's rules. Big Becca does the massive car boot round Morrinsville. They split the mauler. Becca guzzles hers. Mary's goes straight into Rangy's saver. He won't be no cleaner. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Alex. We have about 1 minute left. You said you had a little preview of something, or?
Sure. This is something, it's going to be published later in the year by Pure Slush by the wonderful Matt Potter down in Australia. It's my first creative non-fiction. I came out of a class I just did with the legendary Kathy Fish. So this is what happened. Shirl. Sheep, I recall. People, no. No one else for miles. And I guess it's a weekday because my dad wasn't around. Probably driving the monster JCBs over at the mine and dynamiting dense ochre clay. And I suppose my big sister was at school learning all kinds of things so she could come home full of it. Weekdays, it's just me and my mother at home all day. I remember her perched on the sun-warmed concrete steps. I've lost the pattern of her capri pants. Paisley? Geometric? Maybe Pacific floral. Something on trend for sure. She's catching some early autumn rays in her cat's eye Polaroids, conquering another cryptic crossword. I suppose she must have been smoking. I suppose she thought it was glamorous. I can't remember whether she knew about the health warnings back then. Every now and then she would have recited a more difficult clue with which chant calm, a methodical rhythm, as though speaking the words vanquished their power. And she would have been punctuating her clue war with ha and gotcha, and announcing the answers to no one in particular, probably knowing that all the while she was infusing me with words. And there's more to come. Look out in Pure Slush.
Pure Slush.
100 Lives.
And when does that come out?
It'll be, I think it's November. Yeah, and it's 50 pieces of prose and 50 pieces of poetry, all based on biography or memoir.
Great. April Bradley said hello, and I love CNF. I've got more questions, but I've got Emily Osborne waiting in the wings, so I'll bring you back at the end, Alex. And right now we're going to welcome Emily Osborne onto the stage.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here.
Hi, Emily. So for those of you who don't know, Emily is one of our 2 poetry editors at Pulp Literature. Before she was our poetry editor, we published her poem Devonian in issue 17. But she's also the author of a poetry chapbook, Biometrical, which came out from Anstruther Press in 2018. And she has a book of Old Norse verse translations, Quarrel of Arrows, which is forthcoming. I'm really excited about that. I'm a fan of Old Norse and Old English poetry. So, and then in 2018, she won the Malahat Review Far Horizons Award for Poetry and received an honourable mention in CV2's Young Buck Poetry Award. She's also been published in the Literary Review of Canada, the Maynard, the Malahat Review, CV2, Barren Magazine, and elsewhere. And she resides on Bowen Island, BC, with her husband and toddler. Welcome, Emily.
Hi, thanks so much, Jen, for hosting, and Mel for helping, and Alex and Epiphany for their readings. So I'm going to read 2 poems today. The first is from my chapbook, Biometrical, and it's called Scrimshaw. Scrimshaw is an art form that whalers used to practice. It's an art form of violence where they would carve on ivory and baleen. And it's part of a series of poems I've been working on comparing different movements in art history to movements in geological time. Scrimshaw. Sails wheel the atoll, white teeth clench on a volcanic clot. On deck, the scrimshander culls a tusk, his needle pricking baleen with breakers and peaks. Pin dipped in tobacco spit, he inks mountains, tracing basalt that once rasped the slopes and blistered sand to black. A scab, this island, re-bled through vents until it puckered above water, tattooed onto Denton by whalers whittling hours after hunts, when mammoths slit the surface, when blood thinned to aqua and salt, and whales' pulsed calls thumped the ship's hull. To finish the tooth, he'll onyx it with candle soot and file off its roots. Art opens from wounds as far back as anyone dates it. Death lays down a flat canvas for carving. Art is younger than dirt, only as old as petroglyphs coding Earth's aortas, only as old as carbon in caves, as stenciled hands that hunted animals until they were food or painted or tabooed.
I love that poem, Emily. It's it's so visceral, and I mean, you're talking about such this beautiful artwork, and then this violent pastime or occupation of whaling, and but it's done with great sensitivity and reverence. So, thank you for reading that.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Jen. So here in BC, we're experiencing January, which is a lot of rain and makes it, of course, a lot harder to get outside. And during this period of social distancing, I thought it would be appropriate to read a poem called Dark Ceilings, which was published in the Malahat Review, issue 206. And it has to do with people being closed in and also finding outlets in perhaps unusual ways. Dark ceilings. Night skies were once syllabified in ballads, heroes deified in trochaic glints to traipse through stars. Now there's lambent pollution, a black lamina glazing the galaxy's mezzanine. Indoors, a neighbor's floor is our ceiling. We painted it navy like a sleek magazine, those photos with polar mood. Dark gloss we offset by vaulting more watts, until halogen hummed off surplus lumens, and the overhead tenant's pacing was subdued to dust, creeping through cement. We know someone's home, though we've never met. In every book we've read that ceilings block mobility. Whether glass or plaster, they crack when protagonists in stories find secret attics, laurels, eternity. Against that upstairs, downstairs tug called gravity, we find new atmospheres in light suspensions, twisting pictures on screens with Rubik's Cube utility until we've suspended a channel. Look, stars on black hole balconies. Then we shuffle panoramas to ground level digs, cameras troweling ancient rooms. Our cellars lie on ancestors' roofs. Our footprints sift dirt through sunken ruins, vistas and old myths packed down by urban planning, commuters' rushed iams. Beneath each falling beat, earth laced with cables, everywhere scattering radiation and weightless data. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. That was lovely. That was so thoughtful, that poem. I just love those images, the cables and the dust seeping through concrete, and incredibly disturbing and beautiful at the same time. So I just always love listening to your readings. So thank you so much for joining us, and stick around because we have Epiphany Farrell up next, but I will bring you all back at the end.
Hello.
Hi, Epiphany. So Epiphany Farrell lives on the edge of the Shawnee Forest in southern Illinois. Her story, Every Town Has One, was in issue number 20. Her other stories have appeared in Best Microfiction 2020, Corvus Review, Unnerving Magazine, and elsewhere. And she has work forthcoming in the 2020 National Flash Fiction Day Anthology. She blogs for Ghost Parachute and is a fiction reader for Mojave River Review. And you'll find her website there, link on the YouTube platform. So welcome. I'm so glad to meet you at last.
Hello, I'm really honored to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Typically I write flash fiction. This is a longer story. I'm going to read an excerpt from my story, Every Town Has One, about a town character you might think you've met. and you might be wrong. Everyone knows about vampires and werewolves, but Mickey is just a little guy doing his own thing. Sometimes he likes to show off. This is the beginning of the story. Every town has one. The guy who has been there forever, whom everyone knows by first name, who never seems to change. Mickey was such a one. Mickey was a fixture in Oak Heart. He'd always been part of the town, surely, hadn't he? But the town natives, the ones who'd grown up in Oak Heart and never left, didn't remember Mickey as a child. No one could remember having gone to school with him. He wasn't in any of the yearbooks. So he must have shown up one day and so immediately understood the town that he became part of it. He was present at any outdoor concert and at any art festival or barbecue. He was almost always drink in hand. He seemed to have some sort of police immunity. But then Mickey never caused anyone any trouble. His distinctive laugh, his "you know what I mean" refrain, those things might become irritating during the course of a few hours, but never enough to become a police problem. Everyone knew Mickey's daughter, too. She'd almost always looked the same as he did, except for that some people said they could remember when she'd been smaller. But she always had the same long, straight brown hair and the same long, slender legs, the same brilliant but solemn smile and the knowing eyes. The boys thronged to Jessie, especially when she'd start dancing. She had a way of twisting her body, her arms in the air entwined together, that was reminiscent of belly dancing and of bondage at the same time. She'd close her eyes and bend her body, a soft smile on her lips. Suddenly, her eyes would fly open. She'd look at whatever boy was in front of her and break out in delighted laughter, as if they'd just shared a thrilling experience together, like a roller coaster ride. The boy would invariably look dazed, and Jessie would glide like a snake to another corner of the dance floor, her hair flowing over her shoulder like river water. Sometimes Mickey would get mad. He was a jovial drunk, but sometimes his arm would drop around a boy's shoulders, like pals, and he'd talk in a low voice, the muscles on his forearms and the veins like cords beneath the skin. Then he'd laugh and it would be all right again, and the boy would steer clear of Jessie for a few weeks. Maybe at the next outdoor concert she'd see him, and she'd playfully stomp a foot or put her hands on her hips and give him a laughing glare and say, "Where have you been?" The boy would look uneasily at Mickey, and Mickey would laugh and tell him which bar they were heading to next and that he should come along there. Meadow had grown up in Oak Heart. She left after graduation to backpack Europe, and she didn't come home for more than a decade. Now she'd moved back to raise her daughter. In Oak Heart, summers are best. The sloping lawn that tumbled toward town from Morse College's stately stone hall met up with the city park at the shared band shell and hosted summer concerts nearly every week all summer. An eclectic mix of families, summer college kids, on-break faculty, and townies frisbeed, hula hooped, and danced until the sun went down. Meadow and her friend Natalie were walking the loop on one of the last summer concerts of the year. They followed the meandering path and drank from miniature plastic bottles of wine, which they'd received from a foursome of drunken college boys. A frisbee sailed over their heads, close, and a shirtless boy in flip-flops bounded after it, shouting a careless, "Sorry, ladies," over his shoulder along with a disarming grin. Meadow and Natalie waved, and Meadow pondered aloud how once upon a time she'd have been able to jump and catch that thing. Natalie asked, "Which thing?" And they were still laughing when they came across Mickey. And the rest of the story is in Pulp Literature.
That's great. Thanks, Epiphany. It is, it's a great story, and I love the tension that builds up in there as we wonder, what's going to happen. And Mel has a question about how many Every Town Has One's Mickeys did you draw from? So how many different Mickey characters have you drawn from?
Honestly, just one. There is someone that you see at every outdoor concert.
Yeah, having grown up in a small town myself, I know the character that you're talking about, even though it's not Mickey, and it's a different. But they are the same. There is always that one person in every small town.
Mm-hmm.
So I am going to bring all of the authors back on stage. We had a question for Alex. Do more of your voices come from your many travels or from home?
Oh, I don't even know that I want to interrogate that one. I'm just happy they come. It's a difficult one when you travel and when you live away from where you come from. Is where's home? And I guess there's a New Zealand voice that's always around, ready to speak, but not always. Sometimes they're from other places and other experiences. Obviously, the creative nonfiction is going to be New Zealand.
Right. And that's actually a good question for the other two authors as well. So, Emily, where do you find your inspiration? I mean, it seems a lot of your poems stem from nature, but what else kind of speaks to you?
Yeah, a lot of different things. Sometimes art objects speak to me often. I think since I had a child, I've been writing a lot about themes related to childhood and just memories of my own childhood. And the poems have become more narrative recently, whereas I think previous to having a child, I was thinking about more kind of abstract ideas, like dark ceilings. I had been thinking about just all these kind of layers that we encounter in the atmosphere and the strata that we can imagine, and what things kind of block our ability to see into other spheres, like pollution blocking our ability to see the night sky and things like that. But inspiration comes from just so many different places.
That's incredibly deep. I love that thought of, what blocks our ability to see, and it can be thought of in so many different ways and approached from so many different angles. And it's true that motherhood certainly changes the lens through which you see the world. Like it makes you look at all sorts of things differently.
Absolutely.
So, Epiphany, aside from Small Town Mickeys, where else do you draw your inspiration?
Well, I'll second that on motherhood. That definitely changed me and made me see the world a whole different way. I've only lived in 2 states. I've lived in Michigan and Illinois. I feel like it's been a northern experience, a Midwestern experience, and Southern light. And I kind of absorb everything that's around me, and a little bit of an empath, and hopefully it all comes out in fiction.
I'd love to read more of your fiction, so
I'll send you some.
Great. April Bradley just said, what a tremendous array of readings and voices in each of the readings. I appreciate the authenticity of the characters and immediacy of the moods and emotions. So thank you, April.
Thank you.
We are almost out of time, but I'm going to give you my question that I give everybody at the end of this show. What are you working on now? So let's start with you, Epiphany. We'll go backwards this time.
Oh, I am trying to get a collection of stories together. It's about time I do that. I'm trying the chapbook route, and I'm also going to try an actual book publishing. It's intimidating to me.
But exciting.
Yeah, that too.
Yes. Well, that's great. I wish you all the best in getting that together. And it is intimidating, but I'm sure it will be worthwhile. Emily, what about you?
I'm putting together my first full-length manuscript of poetry and hoping to send that out soon, and also just working slowly on my translations. Sorry, there's something's going off in here, but working on the translation slowly during baby nap times.
Oh, I'll just mute that, whatever that is, for a minute. Something on Mel's computer, I think. And Alex, what are you working on?
Oh, I'm working on the opposite of Flash. I'm editing, hopefully towards the end of editing, my novel Relative Strangers that was selected for the Penguin Random House Right Now program. And it's about memory and belonging. It's a midlife coming of age story and a roller coaster journey about identity. And I set it against evolving race relations and social justice in New Zealand and in Yorkshire. And it's got a horrible zeitgeist to it in some ways, but that's what I'm working on right now. Yeah, but I'm still going to keep doing flash fiction because you get to complete it and you get feedback more quickly. So,
Oh, wow, that is exciting. I look forward to reading that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know what you mean too about the flash fiction being satisfying in that it's out and it's done and it reaches an end. But
yeah.
A novel length thing is I think it would be wonderful to get a whole novel worth of your writing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Well, all the best to everybody in your current endeavors. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your voices with us, making our Friday morning or evening a little bit brighter. And stay safe out there, everybody. And to our listeners, we'll see you again next Friday at 10 o'clock Pacific.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.